What is up, Steeler fans? Well, this is it. This is the last game of the regular season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the end of the 2024-2025 season or regular season. Man, it's been a long year. It's been a good year. A lot of ups, a few downs. Unfortunately, there's been a little bit more downs here recently than there have been ups. However, for the most part, when you look at the season in its totality, there was some really good times. Before the season started, I told my wife, I was like, there might be some hard times this year. I really didn't have, let me say, my faith in Russ and Justin Fields grew throughout the season. So before the season started, I was questioning it, right? And I told my wife, I was like, hey, if things are going bad, just remind me that when it's all over, all you want to do is watch it again. And so to enjoy this season. And I think I've done that for the most part this year. And I think especially early on in the season when the Steelers were getting hot, really enjoyed those games and those times. Like I said, as of recent, it's been a little bit of a downward spiral. However, Steelers have an opportunity to rectify that. They play their final game against the Cincinnati Bengals at home on Saturday night, tonight, if you're listening to this on Saturday morning. Obviously, you're listening to this on Saturday morning. Tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern against the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that is needing some help also to get into the playoffs. Now, the teams that the Bengals are, need to lose out or in order for them to win or to get in, play after the Steelers-Bengals game. They play later on this weekend. And what that means is, the Bengals are going to be forced to put out their starters out there. They have something to play for in case everything aligns up for them after this game. For the Steelers, it's the opposite. The Steelers are right now the second place team in the AFC North behind the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens take on the Cleveland Browns. This is an AFC North matchup on both sides, or for both the games. And if the Ravens were to happen to lose and the Pittsburgh Steelers win, well, then the AFC North Championship the title goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, it's a little unfortunate. A couple weeks ago, the Steelers had the opportunity to wear the Hanson shirts and get this closed in and locked in, by beating Baltimore. But it was a tall task. A lot of injuries and stuff like that kind of took its toll on the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is why, I am concerned about the way they've played as of recent, more so like scheme and play calling wise than I am in the players that are out there on the field. I think that because of the injuries that they had, maybe that did take a toll on, the scheme and the game plan for the games. I think maybe defensively they may be playing a little bit more vanilla because they've had a lot of new pieces, a lot of backups in there in the secondary. There's been a lot of, I think everybody's gone down at one point except for Minka Fitzpatrick, and let's knock on some wood that nothing happens there. But in the end, at this point, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming in here going into this last game and going into the playoffs relatively healthy. Obviously they have one more game to play, and then that'll determine how healthy they'll be in the playoffs, which is the biggest debate question that there is. If the Baltimore Ravens end up winning against the Cleveland Browns, then the only thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be playing for is going to be either for the 5th or 6th seed. And does that really matter enough to get somebody hurt, right? Especially if it's one of your elite or star players, TJ Watt or even Russell Wilson, who I think is not as bad as he's been playing as of recent. I do think that he needs to bring up that bar a little bit. He's had some costly turnovers in the worst places, going into the touchdown, in the red zone. And so those things need to be rectified. But, I think there are some miscommunications and there are some maybe players are not on the same page when it came to some of those turnovers. I know that here recently, George Pickens was asked about, him and Russell Wilson not being on the same page, and that was what Russ had mentioned to the media. I don't really understand the constant question about that over and over again, just nagging somebody. They're trying their best to win a football game. I understand as a journalist is going to try to get soundbite. That's their job, and that's what they're supposed to do. I'm really glad that, well, George Pickens, with how he handled it, was he just put his little, like, he had like, some headgear, and he covered it up over his mouth, turned around, and just started getting ready because he asked the reporters, like, you said that or he said that? And the reporter was like, Russ said that there was that they weren't on the same page. And he had to clarify it a couple of times. Once George understood that it was Russ who had said that, he just covered his mouth and turned around. Well, a lot of people are making a big deal about that. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he wants to say anything else to make something even bigger than it could be. I mean, it's like turning a anthill into a mountain, and you don't want to do that. So I kudos to George, just turning that stuff around and just not even paying attention to it. But the Steelers have had quite a few injuries, here in the last few weeks, and if this game becomes not necessarily meaningless, because the Steelers end up getting the fifth seed, most likely they're going to be going, or I believe they will be going, to play the Houston Texans in Houston. And I think that when it comes to the teams in the playoffs, I think Houston is probably also on another team that's on a downward spiral. They continue to lose people to injury. They just had a major injury to Tank Dell a couple of games ago, which, I mean, poor guy. He's full of talent and ability, and he's knee issues after knee issues, and this one was friendly fire. Him getting a touchdown pass at the end of the in the end zone, and another receiver colliding into his leg. It sounds like he's probably going to be out next year as well. It seemed like when it came to the Houston Texans after that injury that they were just devastated, and they don't seem like the same team. They've been struggling this entire year, and so a lot of people will say that, hey, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers need to go to Houston in the playoffs. That way they can, at least get a playoff win. And to me, I think it's, the Steelers in the playoffs and for success is more than just a playoff win against a team that is, maybe stumbling into the playoffs. I mean, I get it. You got to play who's in front of you and things of that nature. And if it ends up being the Houston Texans, I would hope that game is won by the Pittsburgh Steelers in dominating fashion, and not something that goes down to the end and it's a game that makes the Houston Texans look like they are, or they could go to the Super Bowl, despite how bad they've been playing as of recent. So, I mean, either one of those things can happen, but I would obviously prefer the well, a win is a win regardless, but I would prefer to take care of business, because at the end of the day, let's just say that happens and you go to Houston, then where's your next stop? Kansas City, Buffalo? You know what I mean? So it's not like you're going to be in a situation where you're going to end up playing one of these more elite teams in the NFL regardless. Now, the Steelers have had, a history with Baltimore. They've been able to, for the most part, I know this past game, Steelers got a little bit exploited, and Minka said so himself. And we'll talk about what Minka's comments were in the second half of the show. But for the most part, the Pittsburgh Steelers have had the Baltimore Ravens number in Baltimore as well. So I'm not saying it's a gimme, it's an easy win, or any of them are. I mean, these are teams that have made the playoffs. They are the top group or top six of the teams in the conference. So you're not going to get a gimme in any game. So to me, it doesn't matter where you go. So do you prioritize that game, or do you allow your starters to go out there and just so they can get the bad taste out of their mouth of losing? Now, I think that if the game is out of hand, let's just say that the Steelers are winning by 3 scores or losing by 3 scores at halftime, I would expect some of the starters to get pulled. Your TJ Watts, probably your George Pickens. He's been dealing with a nagging injury as of recent. So it's not like, he's probably one of the guys you don't want to not have available in the playoffs. Russell Wilson. I think I'd like to actually get a chance to see Justin Fields after a full year now in the building with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We saw him in the beginning of the year. He wasn't really preparing to be the starter. Or, I mean, when he was preparing to be the starter, there was somewhat of a quote unquote competition, but the game plan and everything was more so designed for Russell Wilson, because he was going to be the starter. And so I'd like to see what maybe perhaps the Steelers would do in a game plan that would be designed for for Justin Fields with a year under his belt. Um, even if now that he knows the system a little bit more, I like to see what kind of plays that he can get, that he knows now, and let's see how that goes. I'm not expecting to see something that's going to blow me out of the water and make me want to say that, hey, maybe Justin needs to be starting. Come week 1 of the playoffs. You got to go with what brought you to the dance, right? And here, as of recent, it was Russ, and but I would like to see what Justin has. You know, Defensively, like I mentioned, Dante Jackson may not be playing this game. He's questionable with a back injury. Joey Porter Jr., he's been dealing with an injury as well. He may be a guy that second half you might pull out. Now, if the Ravens lose, then it's all hands on deck. The Steelers aren't going to pull anybody out. They're going to try to get that AFC North, title. But if it's a close game, I think I can see some of the starters staying in the second half. I really do think that if the Ravens end up winning against the Browns, and let's be honest, the Browns are playing, was it Zappy Bailey or Bailey Zappy? One of the two. I apologize if you're listening in, Mr. Zappy. But it's not like they're trying to win. The Cleveland Browns are looking for position in the draft, and that's where they're at. So I really don't think that the Ravens are going to drop this one, but you never know. I mean, on any given Sunday, anything can happen. The guys that are going to be on the field are going to try to do their best to win. They don't want to be humiliated. They actually want, some of this is an audition for other teams, so they want to actually play as well as they possibly can. You never know. There could be an upset. Maybe perhaps, the Ravens, what is it? They look past the Cleveland Browns and they start looking at the, perhaps some of these matchups that they could be seeing. That's very well possible. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm on the fence that if the Ravens end up winning before, I really would like to see the Steelers not start everybody or not play the starters for the full game. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about a little bit more into the game. We're going to talk about the injury report more in detail and some matchups to look at, do our predictions, the whole 9 yards. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to the show. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, steelcurtainnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. While you're there, you can check out our audio-only podcast where you'll catch this one, obviously, what you're listening to on Mondays. Don't forget, though, at about 10 o'clock at night is when we air out The Hangover, which is a live show on YouTube on the Steel Curtain Network YouTube channel that goes out at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we do a live podcast at 9, and then that podcast goes out to the rest of the world at 10, and that's called The Hangover. We talk about the game that was, and we'll be talking about this game against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, against the Cincinnati Bengals. I apologize. And what the result was, and where the Steelers are going, and what this means for the team then. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you go and check that out. Check out the website, check out the YouTube channel, the whole 9 yards, like and subscribe. You know what to do. All right, back into the conversation. So as far as injury reports go, like I said, the Steelers are pretty much, they're walking in here pretty healthy, in my opinion. We got, as far as, let's look at who's on the report and who's out. So as far as out already, we have Logan Lee, Cole Holcomb, and Roman Wilson is out. Now, I think a lot of people were hoping that Roman Wilson would make his presence in this game. He's a full participant. I would have liked to see him. To be honest with you, I mean, this may end up being a game that's meaningless. You know what I'm saying? Like where they can't really move. I mean, it's only going to be between the fifth and the sixth seed. It's not going to be an opportunity to host a home playoff game. But Roman Wilson, he's not going to play. He's going to be out on this game. These are the IR guys. I mean, Cole Holcomb, he was a limited participant out there. That's great to see. A lot of people, including myself, were kind of we wondered about his potential future, given how gruesome the knee injury was before. I was actually at that game. I believe it was the Tennessee Titans. Myself and a good buddy of mine named Nathan Hines were at that game. We watched it happen right in front of us. It was horrific. Logan Lee, also another guy that was on RI for the majority of the year, for all of year. He's going to be out as well. Dante Jackson, he's the guy that's a starter out there that has a designation of questionable, for the back injury. And he's going to be huge. I mean, the Steelers need him back. Minka was talking a little bit about some of the things that other teams are targeting. He mentioned, and let me pull up these quotes. And this is, via the Steelers website. He said, quote, if you look at the stuff that we've been beat on or guys are running open, it's stuff that each team kind of got from the last two. We've made real big emphasis this week on those style of plays and even plays that stem off from it, working on communication, everybody being on the same page. So, I know there's a lot of people that were saying that maybe one person's just out of the not in the right spot. And I don't think that they were specifically naming one person as much as one person in every, play. Like, everybody's on par, but just somebody's making a mistake, whether it be one, somebody in the secondary, somebody up front, somebody in the linebacker position, et cetera, et cetera. Because there were some plays where Cam Sutton just appeared to be out of position. And there was a play where on the flat that Minka seemed out of position. So I think that maybe perhaps what they were referring to was more like not everybody's just being on the same page. And based on what he was saying, I would say so as well. He said, and he continued, there's not a lot of people running open. We haven't had to run back a lot of plays, maybe only one on Wednesday. We've been doing a lot of extra work on the side when the offense is on the field, working on those communications, working on those adjustments. So they've basically, what he's saying is that they have identified the problem and they have perhaps rectified it. He went on to say things like that, sometimes people are, in the defense, there's a lot of new players from other places and that maybe some communication has been lacking because of being new to the system. I don't know how much I buy that. I mean, this is already week 18, the 17th game of the season. You would expect these guys to be on the same page by now, but I'm gonna take his word for it, and I hope he's right because they have a huge opponent coming in, has potential to put the ball in the air multiple times. And I mean, the last time the Steelers played them, they still put up 30 some odd points. To me, it felt like the Steelers let off the gas a little bit, and that's why the Bengals were able to come back, towards the end of the game. But maybe that was the start of, teams exploiting something that they're seeing that the Steelers defense wasn't doing. Could be. But back to the injury report for the Cincinnati Bengals, they have quite a bit of designations. They're coming in limping as well. Questionable is Chase Brown, their running back. He has an ankle injury. He hasn't participated at all this week. I think he needs just a 10 or 11 yards to hit 1,000 yards on the year. So he might come in just to kind of do that and then drop out. I think that might be a possibility. Orlando Brown was a guy that was a limited participant for most of the week. He has a unspecified game status, so he's going to be good to go. He has no game status. Neither does Joe Burrow, who was a limited participant earlier in the week for his wrist and knee. Out is Jermaine Burton, wide receiver. This is a non-injury related issue. I believe this has to do with some off the field and, in the locker room type of issues. Questionable, though, is T. Higgins. He has an ankle and knee injury. So it's probably like a high ankle sprain that he's probably dealing with as well. He's been a limited participant this entire week. I think he's going to play. Obviously, he's a that demands attention. And the last time the Steelers played the Bengals, Steelers kind of put Chase in his place. I was a poet, didn't even know it. Well, anyways, put Chase in his place, and Higgins was kind of getting open a little bit. So the Steelers are going to have to put him in check, in my opinion. And if he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, there's no excuses there. He's not going to be at top. The ankles, he's not going to be at top speed. He's not going to be at his top agility or ability. Those ankles are important for wide receivers to make cuts and things of that nature. And so there's no excuse here. The Steelers should be able to, contain him fairly well. Defensive end, Sam Hubbard. This one's huge. He's not been playing. He is out with a knee injury. And our man, I'm messing up. Amarius Mims. There we go. He's questionable. He did not. He was a limited participant with an ankle and hand injury early this week, and here on um, what was that Thursday maybe? Because I don't think Friday's come out. Obviously, as of Thursday, he did not participate in Thursday practice. So interesting stuff. Taylor Brit also is questionable with an ankle injury. So if he ends up getting out there, he's going to be hindered a little bit with his mobility. Let's see if we can get Calvin Austin on him or George Pickens and see if they can exploit that matchup. I think Taylor Britt was the guy that actually knocked down George Pickens from the face mask and ended up taking that pick six to the house. If you guys remember that. Crazy stuff back in the day. Now, a couple of matchups I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers should be looking at. We're going to look at Mike Hilton versus, wide receiver. What do you want to say? 3? It's going to be Calvin Austin. It's going to be George Pickens in the slot. Maybe Pat Freiermuth that you're going to try to get Mike Hilton over Darnell Washington. I think those are all favorable matchups for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially if you can get Mike Hilton in coverage. If you can get him from, away from blitzing and being around the line of scrimmage and force him into coverage, being back into coverage, I think that's where you can get quite a bit of splash plays and really get the offense going. I know we talked about it a little bit before, but the Steelers are going to have to lock down these wide receivers. If Dante Jackson doesn't play, who's going to be covering Chase? Is it going to be Joey Porter? Last time Joey Porter followed T. Higgins around. Do the Steelers, still have that happen? T. Higgins on Porter and Chase triple covered. I think that's what you're going to have to do. But they're going to have to lock down these wide receivers. They've, as Minka said, they've been exploited the last couple of weeks, and they need to show that they can stop it, because if they can't, teams are just going to keep hitting them until they can. And I want to see how the outside edge rushers play against this offensive line. As I mentioned, Mims, he may be out. He's questionable. He's going to be in there limping. And Orlando Brown, he's had some injury designations here and there. He's been on the injury report in the last few days and stuff like that. So he's not at 100%. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig are going to have to make their presence known. Last time, Alex Highsmith, he was still dealing with a soft tissue injury, and Herbig had a huge game. So I'm hoping to see the same out of these 3 guys. I'm hoping to see a little bit more out of TJ Watt, another couple of weeks or another 10 days away removed from the injury. That took him off the field against the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe. It's been obvious he's been playing hurt with that ankle sprain. Now that the Steelers have had like a little 10-day break, I believe it was, since Thursday of last week, something like that. I'm hoping he's at a more closer to 100%. And if he is, I think that's going to be huge for the defense. And it's going to be huge for the secondary, for the upfront guys to get some pressure. And it's going to have to be the front 4 in order to put a couple of guys over Chase. I mean, there's a lot of weapons there. Higgins, Chase, and I know Brown's not going to be there, but they'll figure that out. The Bengals head coach there, he's a offensive mind. He'll scheme some stuff. And, Steelers got to be on their P's and Q's on here. All right, let's talk about the odds. So the Steelers are 2.5-point underdogs in this game at home, which I hope the Steelers are taking that, as a sign of disrespect. I know they've been playing not their best, but this is a home game against a divisional rival. After coming off some time, some rest, getting healthy again. I don't know about that one. And the over-under is 47.5 points. So my prediction in this game is going to be that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win this game. They win, and I think the score is going to be 34-20. 34-20, Pittsburgh Steelers win. And my next prediction is that the Pittsburgh Steelers will end up traveling to Houston, because I think that the Ravens will win as well. So that's where I think I am. Let me know what you guys think. Put it in the comment section. Send me it on Twitter, on wherever you can. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what y'all's predictions are. Throw them in there. Let's go Steelers. Let's end the 2024-2025 season with a victory. Go into the playoffs on a high note, and on a winning run, and get ready to play a few more games, because I believe in this team. I think they will. Well, you guys have a fantastic new year. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, talking about either going to Houston or hosting a home game in the playoffs. We'll find out after this weekend. Until next time, peace.